Madison is our marketing queen, and she's going to be talking about how to use AI capabilities to reduce marketing waste, specifically as it pertains to making messaging more relevant and timely for customers, so that you don't just throw out messaging and it sticks, and really master customer engagement. So yeah, Madison, I think you should go for it.
Thank you. Thank you for the introduction, Nicola. And hello, everyone. I'm really looking forward to today's discussion. I've pulled in a few marketing examples that I particularly find quite interesting. So I'm quite excited for this presentation. As Nicola said, today we're looking at how you can reduce marketing waste with AI. Essentially, the idea is that blanket marketing campaigns or broad-based mass messaging campaigns are no longer effective and not sustainable for businesses. Organizations that rely on mass messaging without precision, they are incurring significant costs. So first of all, in the form of missed opportunities. These broad-based campaigns fail to engage customers at the right time. But secondly, at the heart of this presentation, it's wasting money or budget because companies are spending money engaging with the wrong customers at the wrong time. Every missed opportunity doesn't just slip through the cracks. This waste and talking to the wrong people at the wrong time and missing the opportunity to speak to the right people is wasted spend. And more important than that, if we kind of extend this idea of marketing waste, it doesn't just stop there. These inefficient campaigns reduce return on investment, erode the customer experience, and create negative engagement. They also damage brand perception. When you are constantly blasting out messages and ineffective marketing, it doesn't bode well for your brand. This challenge is especially critical in industries where every message carries a measurable cost. So in industries like telecommunications or banking, insurance, this is a major problem for them. And what these businesses need is a kind of a smarter approach or smarter, more intelligent mechanisms to focus their resources and their marketing on customers who are most likely to respond and engage, rather than spending heavily on audiences who were never really interested in the first place. So that's the problem from a broad perspective. But before I get into the heart of this problem, I want to unpack a bit about the marketing landscape. There are different types of marketing, different approaches, and all these approaches have different aims. So when we understand, this was our aim and this was effective or not, was this wasted or not, we need to understand the different types of marketing out there. So to begin, we've got direct versus indirect marketing. So direct, it's in the name, it speaks directly to the customer in a one-on-one way. The most important aspect of direct marketing is that it has the goal of immediate action. So when you get an SMS or you get a phone call or an email, there is an action associated with that the kind of sender or the organization wants the customer or the person receiving that form of direct marketing, they want them to act on something. Indirect marketing is in the exact sense, the opposite, and is the exact opposite. It's broader. Its aim is to build awareness and brand presence through channels that kind of speak to everyone, whether it's through a billboard or a sponsorship. The aim of indirect marketing is to build that awareness by speaking to everyone. And so if we have to kind of summarize it, one is essentially about conversion in the moment, direct marketing, and the other is about long-term influence. Then if we look at content versus product, again, content marketing is essentially in the name. It's about putting content out there that aims to educate and engage people. So think of things like your blogs and your webinars. The aim is to kind of guide and build that brand trust. So we do a lot of content-based marketing through these webinars, through our blogs. Nicola's always writing really interesting blogs. And when we share that via our newsletters, that's with the aim of sharing information. And what that does is build trust narrative. Product marketing is different because it's a lot more transactional. You are promoting specific features or aspects of specific products. So whether it's, Apple releases a new iPhone and then they show, okay, these are all the products, these are all the features. Both are important. Content marketing helps nurture that relationship, but product marketing helps drive that immediate uptake for whatever it is you are marketing. And then we have brand-based and promotional. Brand-based is one of my favorite types of marketing because it's about shaping perception. It's about building that brand story, establishing a brand personality, and gaining that recognition, awareness, and trust over time. Promotional marketing is a lot more tactical. It's about your discounts, your limited time offers. Its ultimate aim is to trigger a quick sale. They work well together because brand-based marketing builds that foundation, and then promotion marketing captures that action. So, and then digital marketing, just that I've listed at the bottom, is a channel through which all of these different types of marketing can come together, whether it's through search, social, your website, whatever it may be. Now, after we've understood these different types of marketing, I want to take you through a few examples to better understand how it may look, some tangible things that I'm sure everyone here has interacted with. This is an insurance company, Pineapple Insurance. An example of their indirect marketing would be when they launched that massive 100% insurance, 0% other stuff campaign, and was billboards scattered around Johannesburg. That's indirect. They are speaking to anyone who drives on the road where this billboard is. Direct marketing would be a little bit different. It's when Pineapple Insurance or any other insurer would pick up the phone. There would be a call agent who would phone you and say, "Hi, are you looking to buy life insurance?" Or, "We think you need car insurance right now." I'm sure someone in this audience has at least received one of those phone calls this week. These are just different examples of direct and indirect marketing. Then if we had to look at brand-based marketing, this is actually one of my favorite campaigns. It's the Nike Find Your Greatness campaign. The aim of this campaign, in a brand-based marketing sense, was to further and continue the Nike brand narrative, which is athleticism and greatness. It does not promote a specific shoe. There's the Nike Pegasus or the Air Force One. It's promoting the brand. And what I particularly loved about this campaign is that it was launched during the 2012 Olympics, and Nike was not an official sponsor of or a partner of the Olympics. As such, they weren't allowed to use anything in their marketing that was associated with the Olympics. That included the athletes, even if they were previous brand ambassadors or already had brand deals. So they launched a campaign, Find Your Greatness, where they looked at just your ordinary Joe. Can see here in this image, it's just your average chap going for a run. They were like, even though you're not at the Olympics, greatness is still about these ordinary moments. Another video they had was a young girl doing gymnastics in her backyard. I thought that was a great campaign, and it furthered Nike's brand narrative and their image. Similarly, in a different industry, this was Santam. I can't remember the exact date of when this was released, but it was one-of-a-kind country needs a one-of-a-kind insurance. Again, it was brand-based. They weren't selling specific insurance policies or quotes, but it was about how there's all these unique aspects to South Africa. We have load shedding, we have robots that direct traffic, and it was all different countries speaking about these unique things about South Africa. And then Santam kind of wrapped it up saying, we are unique like South Africa. So again, it was brand-based. But then now if we look at something completely different, which is promotional marketing, that would be, again, that quick sale. If Sportsman's Warehouse released a newspaper alert or did some marketing and said 25%, Nike says, "Oh, there's a sale on all your Air Force Ones," something like that. That's promotional. Same with if Santam says, get a quote or sign up for this policy at this discount. Those are promotional. So now that we've unpacked the different types of marketing and seen that they have different aims and they all do different things, I want to now focus on the heart of today's meetup, which is direct marketing. And as I kind of mentioned, direct marketing is the practice of communicating with specific customers, and the ultimate goal is to elicit an immediate measurable response. So as I mentioned, common channels would be SMS, email. In that image, I had telemarketing and some form of people still get direct mail in their post box. It's about how you speak to your customers directly. And there's a few aims that come with direct marketing. So in this instance, it can be driving revenue through upselling or cross-selling. Maybe you get an SMS to sign up for a new product feature, or with your bank, you have a specific card and they want you to upgrade to a new card. Or if you are with a telecommunications provider and they want to sell you more data or a new contract plan, something like that. There's the aim of getting you to buy something, but it doesn't necessarily need to be about buying and selling. It can also be encouraging you to use your app or specific product. A few weeks ago, we spoke about activating a credit card. That is when you send out that message directly to a customer. You want them to take action. In that instance, it was activate your credit card. But you can send out more messages saying keep spending on that credit card. There's a range of aims that it has, but the most important one is that it encourages action. So here, as I've mentioned, there are a few examples. If it's a telecommunications company saying get 2 gigs today for $3, your action is dial 123 to claim. In banking, the action is activate your credit card. Those are just a few examples. And it can also apply to the whole customer life cycle. At each stage, whether it's discovery, engage, activate, or retain, you are going to communicate with the customer directly. So the marketing will look a little bit different with discovery, making them aware of a new product or a new service. And then in activation, you want them to act and do something, as I mentioned, activate your credit card. And then retain, you would be sending out something like, here are some loyalty rewards, claim it now, or sign up for this new product. Direct marketing applies to the entire customer life cycle. Lastly, before I move on, I had the ultimate goal of finding out how much some of the big industry companies, whether it's Vodacom or Bank of America or Chase, actually spend on direct marketing. But unfortunately, they aggregate marketing, CRM, distribution, all of those costs under one broad segment. So you can't actually find the specifics. But what I was able to find is the industries that spend the most on direct marketing, and it's kind of all the ones I've given examples for: financial services, your banks, your insurers, telecommunications, and then retail and e-commerce. So that's just the direct marketing landscape. But with this marketing and its aims comes a significant challenge, which we are going to get to now, and that is waste. So I want to understand why direct marketing can fail at scale and the waste associated with that ineffectiveness through a scenario. Let's say a telecommunications company sends out 1 million messages, whether it's an SMS, email, or an in-app notification. Each one of those messages is designed to get a customer to do something. Maybe it's buy a data bundle, activate a service, or onboard a new feature. At the end of the day, it's direct marketing. The company wants you to take action. But here's the reality. If we're talking about sending out 1 million SMSs, for example, only about 40% of those people who receive those SMSs find it relevant. Then of that, we could say 20 to 30%, or sometimes in some cases, it's really ineffective, and it's about 10% actually take action. This means that the majority of those messages, 60%, are essentially wasted spend. They cost money, but they don't generate results. So let's assume this is 1 million people. This red block is the 60% of people who receive that SMS, but it didn't apply to them. So why? Because for the most part, these SMSs that are sent out are designed as a form of blanket marketing or broad-based marketing. And the problem with these messages is that they feel generic, the timing is off, and they don't necessarily connect with what the customer actually wants or needs in that moment. So instead of being effective, the message is kind of irrelevant. The impact here is that massive companies are burning through marketing budgets with a low ROI, or return on investment. The conversion rates are poor, and most importantly, the customer experience suffers. People start to feel like another number in a database, and not actually like, that so-called valued customer. They don't really feel that way. So the challenge then is, how do you cut this waste? How do you move from sending out 1 million of these messages and removing this red block entirely? If you send out 1 million SMSs, and let's say hypothetically it's R1 an SMS, that's R1 million. But this 60%, it's irrelevant. You're speaking to people who don't even want to be spoken to, so why would you waste that spend or budget? The real challenge is, how do you cut it? How do you move from sending out these millions of messages hoping for a response? How do you then send messages to only this yellow group, or even better, only this green group? It comes down to personalization and connecting with the customer at an individual level. But a big question then is, how do you do that at scale? A telecommunications company, whether it's Vodacom or MTN, have millions of customers. It's impossible to know, okay, Madison today actually needs data, she's in the mood to buy, let's send her an SMS. How do you do that at scale? That's the real challenge. Because the old approach, these mass marketing kind of blasts, simply don't work anymore. So the trick is to go to that one-on-one style engagement. You need to be able to see the customer at an individual level and communicate with them when they are ready to act. So now I want to unpack a couple of the approaches to this form of direct marketing, because I think it would be unfair to say that a massive enterprise doesn't have a strategy or some form of intelligence when it comes to sending out direct marketing. We could look at this image here and say maybe there were millions of more people, and their approaches actually managed to cut it down to just this group here. So they have actually cut what would be already massive waste. But there are still shortcomings to these approaches. So I'm going to unpack a couple of these approaches and then get into why they are ineffective. When you launch a direct marketing campaign, the ultimate question is, who should get this message? That's where targeting and segmentation come in. For a telecommunications company specifically, we'd look at something like their usage behavior. So are they heavy data users or light data users? If they are a heavy data user, they would receive larger bundle offers because they technically tend to run out quicker. A light user would receive something maybe a little bit more affordable or something to encourage uptake. In terms of your average revenue per user, high value customers, so they spend a lot, would probably receive premium offers, whereas low value customers would receive upsell offers to increase their spend. Then looking at something like your geography and your demographics, if you look at an urban customer, they might be targeted with larger high-speed offers, whereas a customer would have something tailored more to affordability or coverage patterns. And then device type, is the person on a smartphone? We can then assume that they probably use more data. If they're not on a smartphone, I think it's like a feature phone, then they would receive maybe a low cost offer via USSD, something like that. And then again, demographic-based segmentation, that's our most obvious form, which would be by gender, race, geography, where they are. And then in that instance, when you communicate with someone, it's most often going to be the hello name form of communication or marketing. Just an example of how this would look. Hi name, are you running low on data? Get 2 gigs. This person's segmented as a prepaid user. Their average revenue is $5 to $10 and they have low data remaining. So that's how this type of communication would look. And this segmentation is obviously, the goal is to drive uptake or encourage an action. But what we see with this is that it's still fairly generic and fails to deliver the right offer to the right customer on an individual level. In many cases, these approaches are either too broad, too static, or they just misalign with customer behavior. And now I would like to unpack why that is the case. Looking at usage behavior, this engagement feels misaligned because it kind of assumes that the way someone behaves in the past is going to be the same in the future. But as we know, people are dynamic and they change and customers are fluid. Someone who's a light user today may be a heavy user tomorrow. For example, if someone's traveling or they're working remotely or facing a change in affordability, I don't consider myself a heavy data user, but for the past few days, my Wi-Fi has been terrible. So I've been hotspotting from my cell phone. My data usage has gone up, but for the most part, I'm always connected to Wi-Fi. So owing to my context, it's changed. How much data I use has changed significantly. And then if we look at something like your prepaid and your contract, there's a split between people who have a contract and people who pay as you go. This oversimplifies reality. Customers can move between these behaviors based on seasonality, budget, or context. If you send out the wrong offer at the wrong time, you're sending a trigger that can be frustrating and irrelevant. It's a case of, well, why am I receiving this? It can also be a case of, I actually need data right now. Why isn't my telecommunications provider offering something that I would find useful? Same for myself. I've had to buy data these past few days, and I've just been scanning through my app thinking, okay, let me quickly get a quick gig here and a quick gig there, but it doesn't necessarily work right now, even though I'm on contract. And then something like your geography and demographics, you can't necessarily assume that young users are heavy data users and mature users aren't, because mature demographics are probably streaming all day, whereas, young demographics may be also when it comes to using data. So, and then lastly, with device type, just because someone owns a smartphone doesn't necessarily mean that they're a high data user. It's the same with someone who doesn't use a smartphone. They aren't automatically low value. The takeaway from these different approaches is that they blunt tools. They assume too much and they generalize far too widely, and then they leave a lot of value on the table. So to truly engage customers at that individual level, we were talking about the man in the green box, telecommunications companies and all companies who are using a form of direct marketing need to go beyond just segmentation and into personalization, prediction, and real-time intelligence. And that is where intelligent sales comes in. Traditional marketing campaigns are based on broad assumptions, as I previously mentioned. But what intelligent sales does is it flips that on its head. So it's designed to identify and respond to moments of opportunity across the customer lifecycle. So when someone is most likely to act. Using behavioral prediction, dynamic pricing, and product matching, it can generate the next best offer in real time. So every message or offer or trigger, any form of direct marketing and communication feels relevant and timely. It's not just about matching products to customers. It's about intelligently matching products to each other. So you can have curated bundles or upgrades and service combinations that actually drive customer value, while also boosting sales. And then because the system continuously self-learning, it gets smarter with every interaction. So what you end up with is this fully optimized, always on sales engine that turns everyday direct marketing interactions into revenue at scale. You cut the waste, but you also ensure that you are finding the right opportunities to communicate with your customers. So whether it's in-session upsells, personalized bundling, retention and intervention, or opportunistic triggers, intelligent sales ensures that these organizations never miss the moment to connect. Now, I want to unpack a few of the approaches that come with intelligent sales and see how they can work specifically in this telecommunications example. So looking at contextual targeting. As I mentioned with a few of the segmentation approaches, most businesses still rely on these approaches, and that's guesswork and assumptions when deciding what and when to offer. The problem is customers don't necessarily respond well to assumptions and guesswork. They respond to relevance. So that's where contextual targeting comes in. Intelligent sales reads subtle behavioral signals in real time. So things like low balance, your browsing pattern, or a drop in engagement. And then it decides, is this the right time to engage? And if the answer is yes, the offer or the communication, whatever it may be, is then deployed at the time or exact moment that the customer is most receptive. But what's important is that even if an organization doesn't necessarily have access to that real-time data, they can still use intelligent sales in the form of customer data and understanding, okay, these are the offers we've made them. These are what have been accepted. We have something to sell. What have they bought? It's that customer data that they can still use to make more intelligent offers. It's just a case of it's more effective when something is delivered in real time. So you can use the knowledge of customers, historical products, and information, and then you can also bundle them together, which I'll get to now. And then that bundle is directly tailored to that customer. But the next point that I want to get to with contextual targeting, because I've spoken about, you can know when to send out a message to the right person at the right time. But what's also important to note about direct marketing is that it's not just about pushing out more messages. It's about knowing when not to send messages. What's great about intelligent sales is that with this system, it knows when not to engage. So it can suppress communication when interest is low. And then what that does is it avoids that fatigue of receiving SMSs daily from your telecommunications provider. And it also protects that customer trust. So with that, the result's fairly simple. Instead of being, disruptive or intrusive, every interaction or communication feels relevant, intentional, and actually helpful. And this shift can dramatically improve, obviously, your conversion rates, but then also your brand perception. Next, I'm going to look at offer bundling, which, as I previously mentioned, is that you can match specific products to each other and then match that to the customer. If we look at how most bundles are designed today, they're fairly generic. Everyone gets the same package or product, regardless of whether it fits their needs or not. So intelligent sales changes that, and it creates personalized bundles. It learns from behavior, preferences, and purchase history to recommend products that naturally complement each other. So an example that I have of this is Jess. We were chatting about this yesterday, and she was telling me she only ever buys 20 Rand airtime. Even if she needs more, it's just like a thing she does. She only ever buys 20 Rand airtime. And her telecommunications provider has not seen the evidence of this behavior, or they haven't used this evidence of behavior. So what intelligent sales does is uses that evidence of her behavior of only ever buying 20 Rand airtime, whether she's on the phone and then it runs out and she has to buy more. They can also note that she uses data because she's on WhatsApp, then match and say, okay, data and 20 Rand airtime is put it together and offer that as a product recommendation to Jess. And what's important here is it's about understanding the behavior, how you act, how you purchase products, or how you purchase your airtime, or what airtime you purchase, and then the module being able to find evidence in that. Another example would be, instead of pushing a random upgrade, it can suggest an add-on or a combination that makes sense for the individual. In that case, it would be Jess's 20 Rand airtime plus data. It's upselling and cross-selling that feels organic and a lot more relevant rather than forced. I think there's a big challenge with a lot of organizations in terms of saying, okay, it's about supply side. We have something to sell, let's get it out there so someone buys it. But we need to flip that narrative and say, okay, well, what do people actually want to buy? And then what can we match to them? Another aspect here is that because it operates in real time, these bundles can evolve with customer behavior. So that then increases or boosts your engagement and ultimately drives your lifetime value, because if you're receiving more offers, you're going to buy more, and that increases your lifetime value. So to drive a closing point, it's not just about selling more for the sake of it. It's about selling smarter and delivering combinations that are more tailored and useful. Next, I'm going to look at dynamic pricing. Pricing is one of the most important aspects when it comes to sales and also marketing. I think there's the 4 Ps: price, product, place, promotion. Most companies still treat price as something fairly static. And what intelligent sales does is it unlocks the power of dynamic pricing. So what it does is it takes into account things like your loyalty status, browsing patterns, urgency signals, and past behavior, and then it uses them to deliver the right price to the right customer. And if you use intelligent sales, if you pair it with another module, let's say, for example, dynamic experimentation, you can A/B test different pricing strategies or discount levels and incentives. Over time, the system learns which combinations maximize conversion without eroding profit margins. You can't just cut all your prices to ensure conversion. With dynamic pricing, you're not just cutting prices. You want to find that sweet spot between, okay, what converts if we discount something, but what's still profitable. The outcome is essentially smarter discounting and a higher purchase frequency. If people are converting more often and they're buying more products, that's that stronger lifetime value. All of this is driven by a pricing engine that adapts to every customer and context in real time. I want to zone in on the word context and unpack an example of taking that context, using where customers are and using that real-time information and understanding how can you communicate a lot better with customers and drive better direct marketing. And the example that I have is one that Jay has spoken about often, which is a telecommunications company selling, data packages or airtime packages to people at a football game or football stadium. And I know he's going to explain this example a lot better than I will. And I know he's in the chat, so I'm going to call on Jay to please share that example with us.
Maddie, we're doing a pretty good job. I'm not going to need me.
No, it's fine. You take this one.
So the reasoning is that if you take time and place and act as 3 dimensions of evidence of your current existence, is there a way that we can use those 3 dimensions to impact, influence whatever the outcome is that we're expecting? So if I think of, let's say, time first and then place, time means that if you think of your life cycle on a day-by-day or a week-by-week, month, year, and the like, and you think about what happens during public holidays or on weekends, depending on what your family rituals or your personal rituals are, you would show evidence of how you engage over time. So if there is an event, let's say a sports event or a music event that happens from 5 in the afternoon until 10, and there's a sports event that is during the day, you know that people are conglomerating and that they are in a different state of mind. That means the act of what they're going to be engaging in is different than they would have under normal conditions. So normal meaning that your daily ritual on a Wednesday, you might never attend a sports event, you might go to a soccer event, and that means there's a conglomeration. The idea is that you almost always need to take time and place and then have the act as a sequence of actions or a sequence of basically behaviors that you know that is going to influence what that person is going to engage in. So in the telecommunications example is that if I am en route to a sports event, you can pick up that the person is in motion, depending on the app, device, or company, the person is in motion. They are not stationary, and normally they would have been stationary, so that means they are going somewhere. If they arrive at the conglomeration point, you can see that there are a lot of people within that geofence. So this could have been an hotel, or it could have been, any physical location that you can track a group of people, even if they connect to a Wi-Fi that is for free at the stadium. It will be a common IP address that that there are people that are conglomerating. And that now means that the sequence of actions that would have been performed under normal conditions are now not present. So now, can I sell this person? They never buy, let's take the Jess example that you used earlier, a certain amount of airtime or data. But if I promote the video first and then I sell the 1 gig on the back of the video for 1 hour at a reduced price, you kind of bring in your dynamic pricing, you bring in all the elements into a way in which you can have a different aspect of engagement for a telco or even for a bank, or any is possible in many cases, depending on how specific you want to get about what you're going to offer that person. So you can create a sequence of actions that keep changing over time. Anyway, that's kind of a long part of the story.
No, that's perfect. I think that picks up exactly what I wanted to say with how I've grouped all these different people. You spoke about dynamic pricing or different behavioral approaches, and then you can class people together. And then you can send that direct message to get them to act. If we look at the previous image where it was just those 3 blocks, the red, the yellow, and the green, you could send out a discounted deal. Whereas with this approach and what you've just spoken about, Jay, picking up the context of people in a different area or out of the norm, and then you can kind of find the evidence of that and then cluster people based on a behavioral approach, whether it's dynamic pricing or product bundling or contextual targeting. You then make an offer that is more likely to convert. And then, as you can see, we cut out all that waste.
People often think about elasticity in pricing or understanding that it comes with complexity and enormous cost of dealing with all the variations. But it doesn't have to be like that. If you have to think of moving away from classical segments into archetypes and from archetypes into algorithms, you should be able to create a repeatable environment that can be automated in the platform. And that's what we're trying to work on as one of our primary focus areas. You can take these, variations that you might want to offer, and you can have eligibility, and you can have various kinds of pricing bands. If you understand the cost of a certain item or the cost of the purchase item, you will know what kind of margins you can sustain depending on customer acquisition in the context of geofence. You can start targeting everybody because most people are multi-SIMmed, or people are multi-banked, or people are multi-insured. You want to make sure that you are always top of mind. It doesn't necessarily have to be about the message to get you to buy or to remind you that if you need something, click here. You make it convenient, and you can drive that kind of interaction if you've got the right platform that can do it all for you. Otherwise, to figure it all out is tough.
I think you segue brilliantly into my next point, which is unpacking how this all comes together. So Jay obviously mentioned that we want to automate this process through the platform. So intelligent sales obviously runs inside the ecosystem AI prediction platform, and it's built for seamless deployment. So you can configure these offers that we were talking about through the workbench or the notebooks, and then you can embed them directly into live environments through APIs, JavaScript, or even client-side responders. Another important aspect is that the system constantly monitors customer behavior, detects readiness signals, and delivers the best offer. And feedback from every interaction is instantly fed back into the system. That means the logic improves continuously without the need for retraining or redeployment. And then another aspect that I want to talk about, which you can see here in these images, that obviously intelligent sales is a module. And what's also great about it is that you can run it as a standalone solution through the prediction platform, or you pair it with other modules, as I also previously mentioned. So you can pair it with spend personality. That's something that we unpacked a few weeks ago in terms of understanding how you group people together or cluster people behaviorally, based on their financial behavior. So you can pair it with that. You can also pair it with the real-time recommenders and dynamic experimentation. Then one module that I want to look at that it pairs well with is the Ecogentic AI Agent Builder module. So when we look at intelligent sales, and it obviously specializes, as we've spoken about, the contextual targeting, the dynamic pricing, bundling, and the next best offers. And it is essentially optimized to answer the question, okay, what's the right offer? What's the right price? What's the right bundle for this customer right now? But then if we pair that with Ecogentic, which is an AI agent builder framework and journey manager, it provides the opportunity to build AI agents that can reason and coordinate workflows and act across workflows. So what it does then is answers, well, how should the sales process adapt across the touch points and the goals within the sales process? You can see here in the image, this is the Ecogentic module on the workbench and the journey builder, but I know Ramsey could probably speak to this a lot better than I could, so we'll save that for another time. Either way, when you pair intelligent sales with Ecogentic, it ensures that every customer interaction becomes this kind of intelligent opportunity to engage and speak directly with your customers and then ultimately convert. So now we've unpacked the whole marketing landscape and we've looked at this problem of waste, and when you speak to massive people and you only get a little bit of conversion, I want to see, well, when you adopt this intelligent sales approach, what are the results? What does it actually look like? So when you start focusing on this one person in the block, so when you move from obviously a blanket campaign to true personalization, and then we look at I want to look at obviously the example I've spoken about. So 1 million messages are sent out, 60% wasted because they weren't relevant. With personalization, it shrinks that waste dramatically. Instead of broadcasting the same offer to everyone with intelligent sales, every single communication is tailored to the individual. So their behavior, their preferences, the timing, and even the intent signals. And then what that means is that fewer irrelevant messages are sent to people who aren't interested, and there's fewer ignored offers. You send messages to people who are actually interested, and you send it in a way that is relevant and timely and works for them, and then you have a higher conversion, far less wasted spend or far less wasted marketing budget. Then those results are obviously fairly tangible. So campaign efficiency improves because you're targeting people who are likely to act, and you're also cutting out communicating with people who aren't interested. So your conversion rates climb. And then with that, your customer experience also strengthens. So instead of feeling bombarded, I think I get an SMS from my telco provider at least once a day. Instead of feeling bombarded and very bland, basic, dear valued customer, you actually begin to feel understood and the communication works for you. And obviously what that does is then also improves your brand perception. When you feel like you have a good relationship, when you feel like you have a good relationship with your service provider, whether it's your bank or your telecommunications provider, it improves your brand loyalty, your customer lifetime value, it enhances everything about it. So in short, not only have we cut waste, we've transformed direct marketing from this volume game. You cut waste, maximize ROI, and then you build that customer relationship. So that is the problem kind of solved. Are there any questions?
Can I maybe just raise a topic that tags onto this conversation? I had a conversation with a client today about exactly this point. To define customer lifetime value is incredibly tough. What is it really worth to retain you versus to try to maximize my immediate profit depending on the engagement I've got with you? And so far, the industries you've mentioned, like telecommunications, banking, insurance, all of those industries are deeply concerned about this. Maybe the best way to look at it is to drive my offers to get to understand you to be the cheapest possible item for you that has got the least amount of benefit for me as the provider. But how much of that do I need to do? What is the equilibrium of figuring out that I'm now leaving money on the table or I've got revenue leakage? That is the thing many people are trying to figure out, and that's why you typically need a combination of models. You need the static models, dynamic models, as well as a generative approach that drives intelligent sales conversations. But you don't want to only take evidence of a person's historical interactions. You want to be able to, in the moment, figure out that there are people that look like you, or there are situations that might be similar to yours, and I can then see that there's a movement, and that means that I can provide you with a flexible price or a flexible interaction. I think that there are many other business drivers that you can tag onto this that all forms part of a broader strategy that I think most companies are trying to figure out. Yeah.
I like that example because the way I always try and understand it is when you go to buy like running shoes or something and the salesperson there, the first thing they always do is try and sell you the most expensive shoe that often isn't the one that works for you. So that's an example of how I always try and understand that.
But I think the other thing that makes it complicated is the Samsung's +1 strategy.
Yes, you have mentioned this before.
Because I think that also adds to the scenario. That means you might need to figure out if you have a good understanding of the individuals or a small cluster of people, and you know that they are sensitive to size, length, volume, price, or whatever the thing is that you're selling. You know that they're sensitive to one measure that is measurable and comparable. The thing is then you use that as your anchor story because they can easily compare it to something they already know. And if you think about it, if I have, let's take the telco example, a 1 gig bundle for $10, what I'd rather do is sell you 1.3 gig for $9. So you're going to get the benefit on both dimensions. Oh, I'm paying less and I'm getting more. As soon as you go to the third, the fourth item, cognitively, there's too many variations. I can't make sense of this. As soon as I have to compare every single item, it's just going to then create decision fatigue. So if you think of prospect theory, if I drive that thinking, you need a tool or a platform that can help you with that because we can discuss it. And I think that's what often happens, isn't it? The thing we see all the time. People create complex strategies and they're unimplementable because people take one strain at a time. You need to create almost like a cluster of recommenders that are all networked together so you can continuously experiment and dynamically experiment, figuring out the right answer because you just don't know. If you declare, I don't know my customer really well, and I'm willing to learn, it's a far better place to be than to say, oh, I know everything. I'm going to create personas and design and everything and just blast it out, a bit like you were saying at the beginning of your talk. Then you can use tools to help you with that.
I just want to tag on to that. You're talking about this cluster of recommenders. Anna created this demo of a contextual recommender. Like the power of that is so underused. When you've got a recommender that gives you a set of options, and from the picked option, it then recommends you something new from that as well. And so you end up with this process that a person goes through, and at the end, it's a picture of something that exactly they want without just being blasted with options.
Right.
Yeah, thank you for those insights. I think that really added to the closing of the talk. Are there any questions or other comments? No, I don't think so. I hope everyone enjoyed it. I always enjoy talking about marketing. The pineapple insurance was my honors research. I used them as a case study, so I was happy to go back to it.
Oh, no, that's an amazing behavioral story.
Only
Yeah.
comment would be fantastic presentation. Thank you. It was great listening to you. Thank you.
Appreciate it. Thank you so much, everyone, and we will see you next week.
Same place, same time. Cheers, guys. Take care. Bye-bye.
Thanks.